You know that face from Menace to Society? The scary guy? And the funny genius from Friday? And that sad performance in Ray? Clifton Powell showed up in over 100 movies. He became Hollywood's most trusted side actor. Then he suddenly disappeared from our screens. What happened to the man who seemed unstoppable? Here's what nobody's telling you. ABC just said that Clifton Powell's sentence is final. But here's the twist that'll blow your mind. He was never found guilty of any crime. So what sentence are they talking about? The answer includes a hotel room in New Orleans, a woman with shocking accusations, a $5 million divorce that left her broke, a gambling problem that ate up everything, and Hollywood's darkest secret about how they really treat dark-skinned actors. This isn't just another celebrity crash story. This is about how an entire business can destroy a man's life, take away his career, and leave him broke without a single jury ever finding him guilty of anything. It's about a justice system that exists outside of courtrooms, where accusations become guilty verdicts, and what people think becomes the final judge. Everything you believe is about to be broken, because what happened to Clifton Powell shows a scary truth about the entertainment business, a truth they never wanted you to discover. It shows how quickly success can turn into a nightmare, how easily reputation can be used as a weapon, and how a man could be sentenced to career death without ever stepping foot in a prison cell. But first, we need to go back to where it all started, because to understand how Powell fell so hard, you need to see just how high he climbed. Southeast Washington, D.C. in the 70s and 80s wasn't a place where Hollywood dreams came true. It was a place where young men disappeared into prison cells, or worse. Clifton Powell was 4 years old when his mother died. This left him with an alcoholic father who couldn't give the safety a child really needed. While other kids worried about homework, Powell worried about staying alive. The streets were calling and most of his friends answered. Selling drugs offered quick money. Crime seemed like the only way out. But Powell had something different burning inside him. Maybe it was the mentors who stepped in when his father couldn't. Maybe it was watching too many friends get swallowed by the system. Whatever it was, he found order where chaos ruled. And he found purpose where most saw only dead ends. When Powell finally made it to Hollywood, he didn't just want to act. He needed to prove that someone like him belonged there. His big break came in 1993 with Menace to Society. This wasn't just another city drama. This was raw, real storytelling that captured the harsh realities Powell had lived through. His performance had an energy that couldn't be faked. Because he wasn't acting, he was remembering. But here's what made Powell special. Most actors get stuck in one type and stay there. Powell refused to be boxed in. One day, he'd scare audiences as a cold-blooded criminal. The next day, he'd have them rolling on the floor laughing in the Friday movies. His comedic timing was perfect. His dramatic range was undeniable. And his presence was unforgettable. By 2004, Powell had done something remarkable. He'd gone from the streets of Southeast D.C. to earning an NAACP Image Award nomination. This was for his role in Ray alongside Jamie Foxx. This wasn't just recognition. This was proof that a dark-skinned character actor could stand toe-to-toe with Hollywood's biggest stars and hold his own. Over 3 decades, Powell gathered more than 100 credits across movies and television. He became the man casting directors called when they needed someone who could become any role completely. Villain, father figure, hustler, cop. It didn't matter. Powell delivered every single time. The numbers tell the story of his success, but they don't tell you about the price he was paying behind the scenes. Because while Powell was building his reputation one role at a time, forces were already working against him. Forces that he couldn't control. Forces that would eventually use his very success as a weapon to tear him down. What happened next shows the dark truth about Hollywood that they never want you to see. August 2011, New Orleans, a hotel room. These 3 things would change Clifton Powell's life forever. And not in the way you might think. A woman using the name Keontae Myers came forward with accusations. Accusations that sent shock waves through the entertainment business. She claimed that what started as a willing encounter in a hotel room had crossed a line, becoming rough when she asked him to stop. The details were disturbing. The implications were devastating. And the timing couldn't have been worse for Powell's career. Within hours, websites like TMZ had picked up the story. The headlines were mean and unforgiving. Overnight, the actor who'd made audiences laugh and cry for 3 decades was being painted in an entirely different light. His name was now linked to one of the most serious accusations a man can face. Powell's response was immediate and clear. Through his representatives, he said the accusations were completely false, and he promised to use every legal option available. But here's the thing about accusations in the social media age. The damage starts the moment they're made public, no matter if they're true or not. The original criminal investigation was thrown out for lack of evidence. Think about that for a moment. Law enforcement professionals trained to build cases and find evidence couldn't find enough proof to move forward. But throwing it out doesn't make headlines the same way accusations do. Myers wasn't finished. She filed a civil lawsuit asking for $75,000 in damages. This meant that even without criminal charges, Powell would remain trapped in a legal nightmare. A nightmare that could drag on for years. He'd have to defend not just his freedom, but his reputation, his career, and his family's future. The entertainment business's response was fast and brutal. Roles that Powell had already gotten began disappearing. Producers who'd worked with him for years suddenly grew worried. Television appearances that should have been guaranteed vanished after just a few episodes. Powell later talked about watching a show where he'd expected to appear in 7 or 8 episodes. They cut his part after the 2nd episode, with no explanation beyond the cloud of suspicion now following him everywhere. But the professional losses weren't the worst part. Powell later said this time period was the most painful experience of his life. The most painful since losing his father decades earlier. As a father himself, the accusations cut deep, not just because of what they suggested about his character, but because of how his children might view him. He couldn't shield his family from the whispers, the rumors, and the doubts. Doubts that followed them everywhere they went. For 4 years, this legal battle ate up Powell's life. 4 years of lawyers, depositions, and growing legal bills. Legally, the entire matter was closed. Justice had been served. Right? Wrong. Because by then, the real damage had already been done. And that damage shows something truly disturbing about how Hollywood actually works. While Powell was fighting false accusations in courtrooms, he was also fighting something even more. His NAACP Image Award nomination for Ray represented a rare moment of full recognition. That nomination proved that his contributions mattered beyond Hollywood's limitations. But such moments were exceptions, not the rule. While Powell was navigating these professional challenges, his personal life was falling apart in ways that would make him even more vulnerable. Vulnerable to public destruction. His marriage to Kimberly Powell couldn't survive the pressures of Hollywood success. The constant travel, long hours on set, and temptations of fame tested their relationship. Tested it until it finally broke. Their divorce didn't just end his marriage. It cost him $5 million, taking away the financial security he'd worked decades to build. Powell has admitted he wasn't the father he should have been during his peak career years. He was physically absent from his children's lives too much, choosing work over family responsibilities. Being gone 70% of the time, he later thought back, was simply too much. The regret in his voice when discussing this time period reveals a man who understands the true cost of his choices. But the personal struggles didn't stop there. Powell fell victim to gambling addiction, losing between $30,000 and $50,000 every year at casinos. He surrounded himself with people who were drawn to his success rather than his character. Fake friends who disappeared when his fortunes changed. The lifestyle of constant spending and shallow relationships created instability. Instability that fed into all his other problems. This perfect storm of professional discrimination, personal struggles, and financial pressure created a man who was especially vulnerable. Vulnerable when accusations came in 2011. The same business that had limited his opportunities based on his skin color was now ready to destroy him completely. Destroy him based on unproven allegations. The deeper you dig into Powell's personal struggles, the more you realize how perfectly they lined up. Lined up to create the perfect target for public destruction. The entertainment business operates like a predator, and Powell had unknowingly painted a bullseye on his back through a series of choices that seemed harmless at the time, but would later be used against him. His gambling wasn't just about money. It was about the adrenaline rush that filled the emptiness. The emptiness left by broken family relationships. The fake friends weren't just hangers-on. They were witnesses to behavior that could be twisted and used against him when the time came. His absence from his children's lives wasn't just poor parenting. It was ammunition for anyone wanting to paint him as a man with questionable character. But here's what makes Powell's situation even more tragic. Every mistake he made, every poor decision, every moment of weakness was exactly the kind of thing that successful people in every business struggle with. The difference is that when you're a celebrity, especially a black celebrity in Hollywood, your private struggles become public weaknesses. Your human flaws become evidence of moral corruption. Your attempts to cope with pressure become proof that you deserve whatever punishment the public wants to give. This is how character assassination really works in the modern era. You don't need to prove someone did something wrong. You just need to create enough doubt about their character. Doubt that people are willing to believe they could have done something wrong. Powell's personal struggles gave that doubt. And once doubt exists, accusations don't need to be proven. They just need to be believable. Which brings us to the final, most disturbing truth about what really happened to Clifton Powell. Here's what ABC meant when they reported that Clifton Powell's sentence is final. They weren't talking about a criminal conviction because there never was one. They weren't talking about a civil judgment because that was dismissed too. They were talking about something far more powerful and permanent than any court decision. They were talking about the sentence given by public opinion. Powell was never found guilty of any crime, but he was convicted in the court of public perception. And unlike legal courts, this court offers no appeals process, no time limit, and no possibility of overturning its verdict. Once public opinion gives its judgment, that judgment becomes permanent. Permanent regardless of what actual evidence might later come out. This is the true horror of Powell's story. In our justice system, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. But in the entertainment business, accusations alone can be enough to end careers. The mere suggestion of wrongdoing becomes a scarlet letter that follows you forever. Think about the timeline. Criminal charges were dropped due to lack of evidence. The civil case was dismissed due to not enough proof. Powell's countersuit was also dismissed, officially closing the entire matter. By every legal standard that matters, he was cleared. Yet his career never recovered. This reveals something truly disturbing about how our society actually works. We claim to believe in fair process, in the idea of being innocent first, in the idea that accusations must be proven before punishment is given. But when it comes to celebrities, we abandon these principles entirely. We become judge, jury, and executioner based on headlines alone. The entertainment business's response to Powell's legal clearing was deafening silence. No apologies were given. No roles were offered to make up for lost opportunities. No acknowledgement that perhaps they'd been too quick to judge. Hollywood simply moved on, leaving Powell to rebuild from the wreckage of a career that had been destroyed. Destroyed not by evidence, but by suspicion. This selective justice reveals the true power structure in entertainment. Studios, networks, and production companies have the ability to end careers without fair process, without evidence, and without accountability. They can destroy livelihoods based purely on risk assessment, treating human beings as throwaway assets to be discarded at the first sign of controversy. Powell's story also exposes how multiple forms of discrimination can multiply each other. The colorism that had already limited his opportunities made him an easier target when accusations emerged. His struggles with gambling and divorce made him seem less sympathetic to public opinion. His roles as villains and tough guys made the allegations seem more believable. Every disadvantage he faced multiplied the impact of every other disadvantage. But perhaps the most tragic aspect of Powell's story is what it represents. what it represents for anyone who dreams of success in entertainment. It shows that no amount of talent, hard work, or professional achievement can protect you. Protect you from having your life destroyed by forces beyond your control. It demonstrates that the higher you climb, the further you can fall. And that fall can happen in an instant based on nothing more than accusations. The phrase sentence is final takes on new meaning when viewed through this lens. Powell's sentence wasn't imprisonment. It was career death. It wasn't given by judges or juries. It was given by an industry that values reputation over truth. And it wasn't based on evidence of guilt. It was based on the mere possibility of guilt. This is the reality that Hollywood doesn't want you to understand. Behind the glamour and the red carpets lies a system that can destroy lives. Destroy them with the same casual efficiency it creates stars. A system where your past achievements mean nothing if current allegations threaten profit margins. A system where justice is determined not by courts of law, but by court of public opinion. Clifton Powell climbed from the dangerous streets of Southeast D.C. to the heights of Hollywood success, only to discover that the entertainment business could be more ruthless than any street corner. He survived poverty, family problems, and systemic racism, but he couldn't survive false accusations in the age of social media. His story should serve as a warning to anyone seeking fame, and a reminder to all of us about the importance of fair process. Because if it can happen to someone with Powell's talent, experience, and determination, it can happen to anyone. The sentence is final, but the lessons from Powell's story are just beginning to be understood.